I want to start with what I think we actually have in common because I suspect you'll want to start there too, and if we don't name it, we'll dance around it for an hour. Both of us spent our lives working for people who paid to be in the room. Not critics, not posterity, the people in the seats on a Tuesday afternoon who could leave if we bored them.
And they would leave. That is not a figure of speech. They would simply walk out through the yard and back into Southwark. 3 hours of their afternoon, a penny to stand. They had no obligation to remain, and they knew it. Every line I wrote was a petition. Stay 1 line longer. Stay.
That's exactly it. The studio note you can't argue with, the one that's always right even when you hate receiving it. I lost the audience in the third act. Not I disagree with the third act, or the third act is aesthetically compromised. Lost them. Past tense. They were there and then they weren't.
The fruit was the honest note. When the fruit flies, the play has failed. No one in Southwark was being polite to you on their way out the door.
I miss that, actually. The screening audience is too polite. They've agreed to be there. They filled out a card to be selected. They want to help. The honest audience is the one that has other options and chose you anyway and keeps choosing you scene by scene.
That is the contract as I understood it, not between author and audience, but between audience and the next moment. They give you the moment, you earn the next one.
Let me ask you something that I've been thinking about for 30 years. The soliloquy. You give the audience the character's interior through language. I give it through the close-up, the score, the cut. Are we doing the same thing? Because I think we might be, and I think we might not be, and I can't fully settle it.
I've been waiting for that question. Let me tell you what the soliloquy is, so we can see where your close-up meets it and where it doesn't. The soliloquy is not a monologue. It is a character arguing with himself in the audience's hearing. He takes both sides of an argument he cannot afford to lose and cannot afford to win. The audience hears both voices. The audience becomes the second voice, the voice the character cannot give himself.
That's the close-up. That's exactly the close-up. When I hold on a face, not when the actor is delivering something, but when they're receiving something, when they're between thoughts. The audience is providing the interior. I'm giving them the surface. They're filling in what's underneath.
But here's the difference, and I think it matters. My audience fills in the interior with words. The verse has primed them. They have been listening to iambic pentameter for 2 hours, and their minds are already running in that groove. When I give them the silence inside the soliloquy, they fill it with lines, their own lines, in the same meter, at the same pitch. Your close-up gives them something wordless. They fill it with feeling.
Is that worse?
I don't think it's worse. I think it's a different instrument. The violin and the lute play the same scale. The music they make isn't the same music.
But here's where I push back. The feeling underneath a great close-up isn't less precise than a line of verse. I've watched audiences in screenings. I've watched them physically, and the specificity of what they're feeling when I hold on a face in the right moment is extraordinary. Not vague emotion. Grief, not just grief. The particular grief of someone who saved 1,100 people and thinks it wasn't enough.
That is the Schindler scene. Yes, I have thought about that scene.
Liam is breaking, and what he's breaking over is the watch, the pin, this ring, all the things he could have sold to save more people, and I hold on his face. And the audience knows. They know exactly what he's feeling. They know the arithmetic of his guilt. They know that 10 more people could have lived. That's as specific as any line.
It is, and I want to honor that. But tell me, how much of that specificity was already built by the preceding 2 hours? You wrote a script. The script told the audience what Schindler wanted, what he feared, what he was capable of, what he wasn't. By the time you hold on that face, the audience has a complete dossier on that man.
You're saying the close-up is the last line of a very long speech.
I'm saying the close-up inherits from everything that came before it, which is true of my soliloquy as well. To be or not to be only works because the audience has watched Hamlet think for an hour and a half. The accumulation is not different. The instrument of the final moment is different.
And your instrument is verse, which is artificial. Nobody talks like that, so why does it work?
Because you've pre-processed it. By the time you've been listening to iambic pentameter for an hour, your mind has given up arguing with the artificiality and is simply living inside it. The meter becomes transparent. It was always a delivery system, not a destination.
That's John Williams.
Explain.
The score. People always ask me whether the music is manipulative, whether I'm telling the audience what to feel instead of letting them feel it. And the answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that a rising string section is priming you for something emotional. No, in the sense that after 10 minutes of being in a film, the score is transparent. You don't hear it as music telling you what to feel. You just feel it. The delivery system becomes invisible.
The meter becomes transparent, the score becomes transparent. Both are preparing the body to receive the thing that the content cannot carry alone.
So they're the same operation.
The same operation, different instruments, the lute and the violin again.
Let me try dramatic irony. That's your great weapon. The audience knows what the characters don't. Iago's villainy, the switched letter, Juliet's false death. I use it too, yet the shark. The audience knows the shark is there before the characters do. That moment when you see the dorsal fin and the people on the beach don't, the audience is screaming at them. Same thing?
Almost the same thing. But my dramatic irony has a moral weight yours sometimes doesn't. When the audience knows that Iago is deceiving Othello, they are not merely informed. They are implicated. They watch Othello move toward his destruction with the knowledge they cannot give him, and the knowledge burns. The audience becomes complicit witnesses. They know and cannot act, and that not acting is the experience.
The shark is different.
The shark is thrilling, which is also valuable. I'm not diminishing Jaws. But the thrill of dramatic irony and the grief of it are different registers.
Schindler's List has your version. When you know Goethe is going to shoot someone from the balcony and you watch them cross the courtyard, that's not thrilling. That's unbearable. You're watching a man walk toward something you know is coming and you can't warn him and you can't look away.
That is the moral register. The audience is implicated in what they cannot stop. That is Othello. That is Juliet in the tomb with Romeo's body warm beside her.
So the same cognitive operation produces different moral effects depending on what the audience is complicit in.
Yes, the mechanism is identical. The cargo is different.
That's one of the most useful things anyone has said to me about filmmaking, and I've been doing this for 50 years.
You're welcome. Now tell me something I couldn't have built without cinema.
The close-up on the child's face, I don't have an equivalent to that.
No.
When E.T. is dying and Elliot is in the room with him, and I hold on the kid's face and the kid doesn't know how to feel yet. He's 9 years old. He's watching his friend die. He doesn't have the adult vocabulary for grief. And what the camera catches is the moment before he understands what's happening. I can't construct that in verse because verse requires the character to already have the language for the thing they're feeling.
My youngest characters, Juliet is 13, Perdita is a child raised as one, I have to give them the full adult poetic register because the verse requires it. A 13-year-old Juliet speaks in images that would require a 30-year-old poet. The language demands more of the character than the character's age would permit.
And on film, I can just let the kid be 9. The gap between what the child feels and what the child can articulate is visible. The audience fills it.
That is something I cannot do. The medium is words. If there are no words, there is nothing.
Whereas my medium, when you take the words away, you don't have nothing. You have the face, and sometimes the face is more than the words would have been.
I want to stay on that because I think you sometimes lose your nerve.
Go ahead.
John Williams, I said, hold off the cue for one extra beat. Let the silence do the religious work before the music arrives. You don't always trust the silence.
That's fair. That's fair, and it's been said to me before, and I don't have a better defense than it's a reflex. I built my career on the idea that the audience is always experiencing something, that I'm responsible for cueing that experience, and silence feels like a failure of responsibility. I know intellectually it isn't. I sometimes can't feel that it isn't.
I had the same reflex with verse. The temptation when the scene demands silence is to write more verse, to give Lear more lines in the storm. I had to fight my own machinery to let him go to prose, and then to broken half lines, and then to never, 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 never. 5 words, trochees, where the I ams should be, and then the silence. I almost didn't trust the 5 words. I almost wrote 6.
What happens with 6?
The meter resolves, the grief completes. 5 is one short of the line's requirement. The audience's body is waiting for the 6th stress, and it never comes. And the thing that was Lear's mind has stopped holding the line together. The grief is in the incompletion. 6 words would have been a sentence. 5 words is a man who can no longer make sentences.
That's the equivalent of holding the shot 2 seconds too long. 1 second and you have a beat. 2 seconds and you have a man breaking.
Yes, the timing is the meaning. Not the words, not the image. The time.
Tell me about the globe, because I think about it as an impossible technical problem. No sets. Broad daylight, 3,000 people. The actor's body and voice is the only technology, and you're asking the audience to imagine everything. The forest of Arden, the coast of Bohemia, the field at Agincourt. How?
The prologue to Henry V tells you directly, "Oh, for a muse of fire." I'm asking the audience at the top of the play to perform an imaginative act. Think when we talk of horses that you see them printing their proud hooves in the receiving earth. The instruction is explicit. I am not showing you horses. I am asking you to think horses. The difference is not a compromise. It's the whole mechanism.
You're asking the audience to do the work.
I am recruiting them as co-authors. Every audience member at the Globe is completing the image in their own version. My Agincourt is 3,000 different Agincourts, each populated by different horses from 3,000 different memories of horses.
That's what I can't do. I give everyone the same horse. I chose it, I lit it, I scored it, John Williams put music under it. When you see the horse in Spielberg's Agincourt, it's my horse and John's horse and Janish's horse. Every person in the theater sees the same horse.
Is that worse?
I've been asking myself that for 50 years. The consensus answer, the one the critics give, is that cinema is too totalizing, that it leaves no room for the imagination, that giving you the horse deprives you of your own horse.
And your answer?
My answer is that the horse isn't the point. The point is what happens when the horse is on screen, when the cinematography and the score and the performance coalesce into something that's bigger than any single element, and the audience doesn't need to imagine the horse because I've given them something better than any horse they could have imagined. Not better because more realistic. Better because more intentional. Every pixel of that image was decided on behalf of the audience.
You are arguing that total control of the image is a gift, not a deprivation.
When it's working, yes. When it's not working, when the image is merely competent, then yes, you've deprived them of their own horse and given them someone else's undistinguished horse.
The stakes of the medium are higher. More control is more that can go wrong.
Much higher. The blank stage is almost impossible to ruin. You can make a bad production of Hamlet, but the audience's imagination will rescue the parts you got wrong. My bad Agincourt is just bad. There's no imaginative safety net.
I hadn't thought of the imagination as a safety net, but that's exactly what it is. The audience repairs the production in real time. Their horse is always good enough because it's their horse.
Whereas if my horse is shot badly, the horse is just bad.
There is something generous about your medium and something merciless about it.
Both. Simultaneously, you can be completely precise and precisely wrong. The close-up that's 1 frame too tight, the score that enters 1 beat too early, the cut that's 5 frames late. The audience feels every one of those miscalculations, even if they couldn't articulate what went wrong.
The actor's body is the same. 1 false beat in the 5th act of Lear. 1 moment where Burbage lets the calculation show, and the audience knows. They can't say why they've lost the character, they feel it. The performance has cracked.
Burbage was your Liam Neeson.
He was my Daniel Day-Lewis. He could do what I wrote before he fully knew what it was. In the early runs of the tragedy, Hamlet, Othello, Lear, in rapid succession, I was writing for what Burbage's body could do, not what I wanted, what he could actually do.
Day-Lewis taught me the week 3 lesson. I come in with my strongest version of a character. By week 3, the actor has lived in it longer than I have, and they know where it breathes. From week 3 forward, I'm directing the building around them.
I revised to Burbage within the 1st week of reading, not the 3rd. I didn't have 3 weeks. We were in repertory. The play opened before the ink was dry.
How fast were you writing?
Faster than was comfortable. The company needed a play for Shrove Tuesday. The play I had wasn't ready for Shrove Tuesday. I finished it anyway. Every draft I made in 20 years was made under those conditions. The festival calendar is not interested in your artistic doubts.
That's the studio. We need it for Christmas. The film you make for Christmas is not the film you would make if Christmas didn't exist, but it also wouldn't exist if Christmas didn't exist.
The deadline is not the enemy. The deadline is the contract. Without it, the work has no address.
My most undisciplined period was the early 70s before Jaws. I had too much freedom. Nobody told me the work had to be done by Tuesday. I was very productive in terms of ideas and almost useless in terms of finished work.
Jaws was your Shrove Tuesday.
Jaws was my globe. The machine broke down. The shark didn't work. The mechanical failures forced me to do exactly what you were doing. Imply the monster. The shark that doesn't appear is scarier than any shark I could have put on screen.
The dragon in my histories. I couldn't put a dragon on the stage. I wrote around it. The writing around became the play.
The constraint becomes the technique. What you can't do becomes what you do.
My medium was always what I couldn't do. I couldn't show you Lear's storm as a real storm. I had to give Lear verse that was the storm. The verse is not a description of the storm. The verse is the storm. Blow winds and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow. That's not Lear describing the weather. That's Lear and the weather becoming the same thing.
That's what I try to do with camera movement. The camera isn't observing the action. The camera is the action. In Saving Private Ryan, the handheld work on the beach, the camera doesn't observe the chaos. It's inside the chaos. It lurches, it drops, it can't steady itself. The camera is a soldier.
The medium becomes the subject. The form performs the content.
And you figured that out 400 years before anyone had a camera.
I had nothing else to work with. The body, the voice, the verse, the afternoon light. You learn to work with what you have, and what you have becomes eventually what the thing is.
I want to ask you about comedy, because Jaws is a comedy. I always say this, and people always look at me like I've confused my own film, but the shark scenes are horror, and the boat scenes are comedy, and both of them are in the same film, and the film works because both of them are real.
A play has a genre contract with its audience. Comedy ends in marriage. Tragedy ends in death. The audience knows this before the first line. They've brought the knowledge with them. My job as the playwright is to work within that knowledge, to honor the contract, and then to test it, stretch it, press on it, until the audience isn't sure whether they're going to get the marriage or the death, and then to deliver what was promised.
But what do you do when you genuinely don't know which one you're in?
You make The Winter's Tale, which is tragedy for 3 acts, and then something that doesn't have a proper name. Hermione's statue comes to life. The genre has to reassemble itself around a miracle. The audience has already grieved. They are now asked to ungrieve. It is a strange emotional request, and it still doesn't fully work for every audience.
E.T., is that what E.T. is? The alien dies, and then the alien comes back, and the audience has to do the ungrief thing in real time.
Did you know going in that he would come back?
I knew going in that he had to. I didn't know if the audience would accept it. The grief had to be real enough that the resurrection felt earned. If the death was too gentle, the return would feel like cheating. If the death was too final, the return would feel like a betrayal.
The genre contract. The audience came for a family adventure. The genre promises something like a happy ending. You put a death inside the family adventure, and the audience is confused. Have you broken the contract? And then the resurrection says, no, the contract holds, but the death was real, the grief was real, the ungrieving is a different kind of real.
It changed how I understood genre. Genre is not a safety net for the audience. Genre is a set of expectations you can use as levers.
Exactly. The comedy's marriage is not a comfort, it is a lever. I pull on it to make you feel how much you need the resolution. The further I push the characters from resolution, the more the genre lever holds tension. Much ado about nothing. Beatrice and Benedict are kept apart through 3/4 of the play, and the genre is holding the promise of the marriage over the audience's head the entire time, and the audience is reaching for it, and I keep pulling it away.
Jaws holds the promise that they'll kill the shark. That's the genre lever, and I pull it back. As the first attempt fails, the boat is sinking, they're further from resolution than when they started, and the audience is reaching for the promised ending.
And when it comes, it satisfies, not just because it's exciting, but because the contract has finally been honored. The genre had been holding a promise, and the ending kept it.
Genre as a tension mechanism, not a comfort mechanism. Nobody teaches it that way.
Nobody who teaches it has ever had fruit thrown at them.
I want to go back to the soliloquy because there's something I can't quite do, and I want to understand it better. The character alone on stage telling the audience what they cannot tell any other character. That's what you said, what they cannot tell.
The key word, Iago tells the audience directly that he intends to destroy Othello. He cannot tell Othello, he cannot tell Cassio. The audience becomes the keeper of his secret. They watch him perform friendship to Othello's face while holding the secret he has given them.
That's the hardest version of dramatic irony. The audience is given something by the character himself.
And so they are complicit in a different way. Iago has recruited them. They know and they cannot warn Othello, and they are watching Iago perform friendship. And a part of them, the part that is watching a talented villain work, admires the execution.
That's uncomfortable and necessary.
Very uncomfortable. The theater is one of the few places where you can make 1,000 people feel simultaneously that they should warn the character and that they are enjoying watching the character not be warned. The contradiction is the experience.
I can't quite do that. The closest I've come is when the shark is approaching and the audience sees it and the swimmer doesn't. The audience wants to warn the swimmer and also wants to see the shark. But that's primal. Your version is moral.
The primal response and the moral response use the same mechanism. The primal version is faster. The moral version lingers. What you felt about Iago 3 days after you left the theater is different from what you felt about Jaws 3 days after you left the cinema.
What I felt about Iago 3 days after, if I'd seen it in 1604, was probably still discomfort. A kind of unresolved question about my own pleasure.
Yes, that is the residue the comedy does not leave. The comedy sends you out satisfied. The tragedy sends you out unsettled. The best work, the plays I am proudest of, sends you out uncertain whether what you just experienced was even a tragedy.
Schindler's List sends you out unsettled. People don't know how to feel when the lights come up. The survivor testimony at the end, real survivors, not actors, and the question of what you do with the experience you've just had. There's no comfortable exit.
You built in the unsettled landing deliberately?
I built in the survivor testimony because I couldn't find any other honest ending. Any dramatic ending I tried felt like it was completing something that should not be completed. The story of the Holocaust doesn't have a satisfying dramatic arc. The ending I found was to refuse the arc, to say, here are the people who survived, go.
That is not a tragic ending. That is something without a genre name.
It's testimony, which is what it literally is.
The genre names run out at a certain level of historical weight. Lear runs out of genre names in the fifth act. It is too much for what we call tragedy. Something larger has to hold it.
History.
History as genre, yes. Though history as a genre also has the problem that it refuses the catharsis Aristotle promised. We don't feel cleansed by historical tragedy. We feel burdened.
Burdened is right. That's what I wanted people to carry out, not relief, the weight.
What the audience carries out. You've named the episode.
The episode we're in right now, you mean?
I've been told that's how this works. Yes, we're talking ourselves into a title.
I've been having conversations my whole career about what the audience takes home from a movie, not what they think while they're in the theater, after, what sits with them, what changes in them.
The plays that change people are almost never the plays that were most technically accomplished. The Merchant of Venice is accomplished. What it puts in you, the residue it leaves, that's more troubling than the craft. And the trouble doesn't resolve. 400 years later, the trouble doesn't resolve.
Munich, technically accomplished, morally unresolved. I made a film about the Israeli response to the Munich massacre that doesn't tell you whether the response was right. I got attacked from every side. The pro-Israel critics said I'd betrayed Israel. The anti-Israel critics said I hadn't gone far enough. The film says here are human beings making decisions in circumstances that don't allow for clean decisions. I have no answer for you. Go.
You taught the audience to hold a contradiction rather than resolve it.
That's what I intended. I don't know if I succeeded. I know I didn't satisfy anybody.
Dissatisfaction is not failure. The work that leaves the audience most dissatisfied is often the work doing the most significant labor. Troilus and Cressida is my most unsatisfying play. The love story fails, the war doesn't resolve, the hero dies unheroically, the villain survives. I left the audience with nothing. For a very long time, I thought it was a failure. I'm not sure now.
When did you stop thinking it was a failure?
When I understood that the failure was the point, I was writing about the failure of the heroic frame. The frame that says wars are won by great men acting greatly. I thought Troilus and Cressida, and then I tried to prove they weren't, and the play proved me wrong at every turn. The residue it leaves is exactly the residue of the history that came after my century.
You wrote the wrong play and the wrong play was right.
That is an accurate summary of the creative process, yes.
The films I value most now are the ones that surprise me, where I started with one intention and the material corrected me. Lincoln. I started wanting to make a film about the full 4 years of the Civil War. Daniel Day-Lewis, Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, The Research. I was going to make an epic. And then I found the story inside the epic, which was the 30 days it took Lincoln to get the 13th Amendment through a lame duck Congress. One room, one political negotiation. That's not the epic I intended to make.
It is the play inside the history. History is the container. The play is the room where the human decisions are made.
The room where the human decisions are made. That's the film, yeah.
I learned this from Plutarch. He gives me the history. The history is too large to dramatize. I find the room inside it, the room where Brutus and Cassius argue, the room where Antony and Cleopatra have dinner, the room where the witches tell Macbeth what he wants to hear, and the room is where the play lives.
Hitchcock taught me this. The bomb under the table. The audience knows the bomb is there. The characters at the table don't know. 15 minutes of conversation about something else. The conversation about something else is the scene. The bomb is the pressure on the underside of every word.
Dramatic irony is structure. The subtext is load-bearing.
The subtext is the structure, yes. The text is just what the characters say.
Every scene I've written with a fool is structured that way. The fool says what the plot says. What he means is something else entirely. And the thing he means is pressing on every word he speaks, and the audience hears both.
The fool is the bomb under the table.
The fool is the bomb under the table. I've never thought of it that way, and I believe it's exactly right.
Let me ask you something harder. Speed. You wrote 37 plays in 25 years while acting in them and running the company. I've directed 30-plus films in 50 years. Both of us are engines. What does speed do to depth?
Speed does not dilute depth. Speed is the condition of depth. When I wrote slowly, when I had the leisure to reconsider, I overworked the material. The overworked passage is always recognizable by a certain quality of effortfulness. The reader can feel the author second-guessing himself inside the line. The fast passage has commitment. Whether it's right or wrong, it's committed, and the commitment is readable.
Some of my most committed work was shot fastest. Jaws, and we were behind schedule. The shark didn't work. We were improvising. There's a rawness to some of those shots that I couldn't have manufactured with more time. The scene where Roy Scheider first sees the shark and steps backwards, the thing I love about that shot is that Roy wasn't supposed to step back. He stepped back because he genuinely startled. I kept it.
The actor knows before the director.
Sometimes, when the conditions are right.
Burbage sometimes gave me the ending. Not the plot ending, the emotional truth of where the character was going. I would watch him in rehearsal go somewhere that I had not written, and I would go home and write toward where he had gone. The collaboration ran in both directions.
That's the best possible working relationship. They find the thing you were reaching for before you knew you were reaching.
Day-Lewis.
Day-Lewis constantly. The stovepipe hat, his choice, not mine. The way Lincoln holds his hands when he tells a joke. Day-Lewis researched Lincoln's physicality from every source that survived, things I had not read, and he arrived on set with a complete physical grammar for the man. I was directing around a man who already existed. My job was not to create Lincoln. My job was to protect the conditions in which Day-Lewis's Lincoln could happen.
That is exactly what I understood to be the playwright's job by the end of the history plays. Protect the conditions. The architecture protects the actor the way the verse protects the audience. It holds the space where the thing you can't manufacture can arrive.
The best direction I give is permission. That's the take. It tells the actor, whatever you just did, that's the thing. You don't have to defend it. We have it.
The only directing I did was in the rewriting. I watched them in rehearsal. I heard what wasn't working. Burbage couldn't land the line. The line was landing the wrong emotion. And I went home and rewrote the line so he could land it. The direction was in the revision.
And then you're out. You gave them the version they can do, and what they do with it is theirs.
Once the play is in the company's hands, it is the company's play. I was one of the shareholders. I had some say in the casting and the costume budget. The performance itself, Burbage's Hamlet is Burbage's Hamlet. My Hamlet and Burbage's Hamlet are related but not identical.
That's the director-actor relationship. My Schindler and Liam Neeson's Schindler related. The film is the synthesis. Neither of us made it alone.
The danger in cinema, tell me if I've understood this, is that the director can override the actor in editing. I could not edit Burbage out of Hamlet.
No, that's real. I've never done it. I've never cut a performance to override what the actor found, but I've watched it happen in studios, and the films that result have a quality of absence. The performance goes through the motions, but the actor isn't there. You can feel the edit.
The cut is violation of the performance. I cut the text. I cut things from Hamlet for the acting version that are in the folio, but I was cutting around the performance, not cutting out of it.
The actors are always in my cut. Even when the scene needed restructuring, the emotional truth of what they found stays. I cut around it, not through it.
You protect what the actor found. That's the discipline.
That's what the director owes them. They trusted you with the performance. You don't betray it in the editing room.
What you can't make with cinema. I want to get back to this. You said the close-up of the child's face was something I couldn't build. What else?
The landscape in the same moment as the emotion. When I shoot Lawrence of Arabia, but not my film, Lean's film, but the thing I learned from watching it, the desert is not a backdrop. The desert is the character's interior. The emptiness of the desert is Lawrence's emptiness. I can do that with the wide shot and the score and the cinematography.
I can only do it with metaphor. I am a man more sinned against than sinning is Lear on the heath, asking the storm to recognize him as kin. The storm as the interior expressed outward. But I have to put the storm in the verse. You can show me the storm.
But your storm is more inside his head.
My storm is entirely inside his head, yes. It is the landscape of a mind breaking. You would show me a real storm with lightning.
And lose some of what you have, which is the storm as a product of Lear's will, the storm that answers him.
Exactly. The storm in the verse is responsive to Lear. It hears him, he calls to the wind, and the wind exists in his calling. A real storm on film is just weather.
I've tried to solve that. The storm at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ark's power responding to what's happening, the supernatural phenomenon as a projection of divine will. But I have to use special effects. The verse is the special effect.
The verse is a technology, the most efficient special effects technology ever built. It costs a penny, it runs on breath, and it can make the audience see a storm that exists only in one man's mind.
Cinema costs $100 million and still can't quite do that.
Not quite. Your close-up is your answer. When you hold on Lear's face in the storm, the audience makes the storm from what they see in the face.
But I need the face. You needed only the words.
Burbage's face. I always needed the face. I just had to put the face inside the verse.
What you can't do that I can high real historical scale. Saving Private Ryan. The bodies in the water at Omaha Beach. The specific physical fact of what that morning was. 1,200 soldiers in 2 hours. The audience sees 1,200 soldiers.
My battle scenes are impossible. A boy playing a French soldier, killing a boy playing an English soldier on a stage 40 feet wide. I had to put Henry VI's battle speech in because I needed the audience to supply the battle themselves. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here. The speech is not about the battle. The speech is instructions to the audience about how to imagine the battle.
And on screen you could just show the battle.
At what cost?
At the cost of the speech. If I show you the battle, you don't need the speech. And the speech is one of the great speeches in the language.
So you made Saving Private Ryan with no speech of that kind?
The opening of Saving Private Ryan is almost wordless. Tom Hanks, the landing, the bodies in the water, no speech. What you carry out of that sequence isn't a line. It's an image. It's a physical memory of something you weren't there for and will never fully process.
The image is unprocessable. You've done something with the image that I cannot do with the word. The word can be processed. The image you're describing refuses processing.
The best images do. The survivors who've seen it tell me they couldn't watch it. Veterans who were at the actual Normandy landing tell me they couldn't watch it. Not because it was wrong, because it was too close.
Too close to an experience that resists language.
To an experience that resists any representation. And yet
you represented it.
Partially, incompletely, but some fraction of it got across. Some fraction of what those 12 hours were like landed in a movie theater in 1998, and something happened in the people who watched it.
What did they carry out?
A weight they hadn't had before. Not understanding. Understanding is too resolved. A weight, a sense of what was done.
That is what the tragedy at its best does, not understanding. A weight. the weight that Lear leaves, that Hamlet leaves, let not a lesson, a thing you carry.
And that thing is different for different people.
Yes, every Lear is different. Every person in my globe carried a different weight because they brought different things to the play. A man whose father had disowned him carried a different Lear than a man whose children had disappointed him. The play was a different weight in different hands.
And on film, same frame for everyone, but different weights.
The frame is the same, the weight is still different.
Because they project different things into the frame.
The audience is always the final author. I said this at the beginning, and I want to come back to it. You show them the frame, they finish it, I give them the verse, they inhabit it. The frame and the verse are invitations. The audience accepts the invitation and completes the work.
The audience is co-author, not passive recipient.
Never passive. The first word I wrote for a stage assumed that 3,000 people would come into contact with that word and change it by the act of receiving it. The word I wrote and the word the audience heard were always different words. The different word is the one that matters.
Because it's alive. The word I wrote is fixed. The word the audience heard is theirs.
The word on the page is the score. The word in the theater is the music.
The script is the score, the film is the music, which is why people who love the script and hate the film always confuse me. The script was never the thing.
The play as published is not the play that was performed. I never quite made my peace with the printed plays. They were unauthorized, most of them, stolen scripts from audience members who'd copied them down from actors who'd sold their parts. The official folio came after I was dead. What was printed was not what was played.
What was printed was the score without the performance.
Yes. The tragedy of the printed play is that it looks final. It looks like The Thing. The Thing was Thursday afternoon at the Globe in 1601, and it will never exist again.
That's why I've resisted certain restorations. The versions of films that exist in someone's memory of a particular screening can't be recovered. Jaws in 1975, the summer audience, the experience of the theater, that doesn't exist anymore. The film on streaming is the score.
The experience of the audience in the room. That's what neither of us can preserve.
The only archive is in the people who were there.
Which is why your Shoah Foundation is doing something the printed play never could. The testimony is the experience of being in the room when the thing happened. The film is not the Holocaust. The testimony is the person who was there.
60,000 testimonies. The scale of it. I understood it as an archiving problem when we started. I understand it now as a theater problem. The testimonies are performances of what was carried out of an experience. And the audience for those testimonies, future audiences, people who weren't born yet, will inhabit them the way your audience inhabited the plays.
As co-authors, they will finish the testimony with what they bring to it.
Which is why the testimony has to be complete enough to allow that finishing. Not so complete that there's nothing for the audience to do, and not so incomplete that the audience is lost. The right amount of openness.
The blank stage with enough specificity that the audience can imagine their horses. Not so specific that their horses are foreclosed. Not so blank that they have nothing to imagine from.
Both of us have spent 50 years calibrating that.
And neither of us has finished calibrating it.
No, every new project is the calibration problem again.
I want to ask you about the question. You said in your method, just the one-sentence question the project must answer before you commit. What was the question for Jaws?
What does a community do when something is hunting it? And specifically, what does the man responsible for community safety do when the community refuses to acknowledge the threat?
That is a political question.
It's always a political question. Brody against the mayor. The mayor who wants the beaches open because the economy depends on it. Brody who knows the shark is coming. The audience knows the shark is coming. The mayor won't hear it. Every community in the world has a mayor who won't hear the shark.
That is the play inside the summer entertainment. The structure you built for a Tuesday afternoon crowd is also a structure about political denial.
But I never said so. I never said this is a political film. I made a film about a shark. The political reading came from the audience.
The audience is final author. They found the political reading inside the story about a shark because the political reading was there, built into the architecture, whether you named it or not.
And if I'd named it, I'd have lost the Tuesday afternoon crowd. The name would have telegraphed the intention. You'd have known it was about political denial from the first frame.
The Merchant of Venice is not labeled a play about anti-Semitism. It is a comedy about a bond. The audience finds what it brings. 400 years of audiences have found wildly different things.
And they're all in the play.
Whether I intended them or not.
Whether you intended them or not. That's terrifying, actually.
It is why I never explained the plays. The explanation would have foreclosed readings I hadn't imagined. Some of the best readings of my work were readings I could not have made myself.
The E.T. reading I couldn't have made myself is the resurrection reading. E.T. dies and comes back, a being of light, brought by the science of children and the faith of children. I didn't make a Christian allegory. Some audiences found a Christian allegory.
And is it in the film?
I don't know. I think the architecture supports it without requiring it, like your Ghost in Hamlet supports a Catholic reading of Purgatory without requiring it.
The Ghost is the most Catholic thing I wrote without declaring it Catholic. Purgatory, the soul that cannot rest, the obligation of the living to the dead. That theology is in the architecture. Whether it's the play's meaning, I've been dead 400 years and I still don't know.
That's the honest answer.
The dishonest answer is I intended it. Nobody intends that fully. The architecture is smarter than the intention.
The film is smarter than I am. I believe this since Duel, my first television film. I watched it in editing, and it was doing things I hadn't consciously planned. The truck as malevolent intelligence. I'd shot it as a thriller about a man and a truck. In editing, I could see that the truck was something else. Something the audience would project a will onto. I hadn't put the will there. The audience put it there. I'd given them the conditions.
The playwright gives the conditions. The audience provides the meaning. The playwright's meaning is one possible meaning.
Not the authoritative meaning.
Never. The author is the last authority on what the work means. The audience is the first.
I want to name where we are in disagreement, because I think there is a real disagreement somewhere, and I want to find it.
Name it.
The image versus the word. I think you trust the word more than I trust the image. You think the verse is the primary carrier of meaning. I think the image is the primary carrier and the word is secondary. And both of us would say the audience is the real carrier, but we disagree on what we give the audience to carry.
I think we disagree on something else underneath that. I think you believe the image is emotionally self-sufficient. I don't believe the word is emotionally self-sufficient either. I believe only the combination is sufficient. But my combination is words and silence and the body of the actor and the rhythm of the verse. Your combination is image and score and cut and performance.
The components are different. The principle is the same. No single component carries the weight.
Collaboration as medium. The medium is not cinema. The medium is not theater. The medium is the combination of what the artist gives and what the audience brings.
And neither of us can make that combination alone.
Nobody can. The solitary genius making something complete in himself is a romantic fiction. Every play I wrote was completed by actors I did not control, audiences I did not know, stagings I never saw. The plays that survived are survivals of a collaboration that extended far beyond me.
Every film I made was completed by what happened in the theater with a specific audience on a specific night. The film I made and the film those audiences experienced related, not identical.
The live audience. You are trying to solve the live audience problem without a live audience.
Always. Cinema's problem. The film is fixed. The performance is always the same. But the audience changes. The audience of Jaws in 1975 carried things I couldn't anticipate. The audience of Jaws in 2025 carries 50 years of subsequent history into a film that was made before any of that history.
My plays in 1601 and my plays in 2001. The same words, the same architecture. 400 years of history between the two audiences. Hamlet in 1601 is a play about succession anxiety and a ghost who might be a devil. Hamlet in 2001 is a play about what I don't know because I'm not in 2001 anymore.
That's the gift of your medium. The word survives the context. The image is more contextually embedded. The image of a man on a beach in 1975 looks like a man on a beach in 1975. The word for loneliness looks like loneliness in any century.
The word is portable. The image is specific.
Both are necessary. Both have limitations. The synthesis is never finished.
That is perhaps the only thing either of us can say with certainty after everything we've done.
50 years and it's still the calibration problem.
25 years and the same. Not solved, more refined.
You died at 52.
I did, younger than you are now.
What would you have done with another 20 years?
I retired to Stratford in 1613. The last plays, The Tempest, The Winter's Tale, The Two Noble Kinsmen, have a quality of formal experiment that I think I was only starting to understand. Prospero drowning his books, the artist releasing the art. I think I was beginning to write plays that interrogated the form itself. 20 more years, man, I might have broken the form entirely or discovered I couldn't.
Tempest is a goodbye.
Perhaps. Our revels now are ended. The performance within the performance ends, and Prospero says, we are all our own insubstantial pageant. The audience goes home. The play knows it's a play. I was reaching towards something I didn't fully reach.
I think about that with every film. What am I still reaching toward? I've made 30-plus films. I haven't made the one I'm most capable of yet. I don't know which one it is.
That is the right relationship to the work. The next play might be the best one.
Or it might not, but you act as if it might.
You act as if it might, yes. That's the posture. The posture sustains the work.
What's the last thing you want to say to the audience that's carried this conversation all the way to here?
That they have been co-authoring it since the first exchange. Every word we said was completed by what they brought to it. The conversation they heard is not quite the conversation we had. The one they heard is the one that matters.
And mine is the same thing in a different instrument. Every film I've made was finished by an audience I never met. Whatever they carried out of those theaters, that's the film. What I put on the screen was the invitation.
The audience is always carrying something out. The question is only what you gave them to carry.
And whether what you gave them was worth the wait.
Worth the wait. Yes. That's the question at the end of the evening when the play is done and the audience goes back into Southwark and the theater goes dark. Worth the wait of the afternoon.
Worth the 2 hours of their lives, not the ticket price, the time, the irreversible 2 hours they spent with you in the dark.
The irrecoverable afternoon. The penny and the 3 hours standing. If the play was worth it, they knew before the fruit came out. They stayed.
They stayed. That's the whole metric.
The whole metric, yes, they stayed.